And then it's going to cover you. This is the standard blanket. Again, you want to make sure the plain side is next to the body so that your dew-reflecting materials are acting like a gentle infrared sun. The last few months since I've been working with more autism families, these children are so calm, relaxed. They can sleep. The parents can sleep, which is so important. One of the moms took the blanket home with her, and her son is using it in his therapy. The therapist said that it usually takes 8 hours for her to get as deep as she was able to get with him in 30 minutes, just laying on top of the blanket. These pets love their wellness blanket. I have a friend who is also an affiliate, Dr. Carey. She has a little dog. He's about 9 years old. He has arthritis in his hip. So when she got a blanket several months ago, she would have to pick him up and put him on the bed so he could sleep with her. But after 2 weeks, he can now jump up again, and he's not showing that pain that he used to have. One of the most important things with the wellness blanket is that we keep it dry. And when you buy your wellness blanket, it will say here, dry clean only, do not get wet. I'm going to go to thewellnessblanket.com. I always tell people don't forget because if you just put in wellness blanket, you won't find us. So it's thewellnessblanket.com. Make sure you put in blanket 10 for 10% off.
Former KGB operative Yuri Bezmenov defected to the United States and became an American citizen. In this interview, he describes the 4 stages of ideological subversion used by the Communist Party to take over the United States.
When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB. The perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate 1 generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. It's what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world, that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to.
Infectant where it knocks it out in minutes.
Chlorine dioxide has so many mechanisms of action.
The war on chlorine dioxide. That every cupboard in this country should have chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide.
Dioxide is super awesome. Pierre Corey has a new book that I've read about the history of chlorine dioxide, and you're featured.
Meet G. Edward Griffin, a renowned author and researcher who has uncovered truths that have changed the way we understand the world. His groundbreaking book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, takes you on a thrilling journey into the secret world of the Federal Reserve. It's a detective story, but everything is true. This is essential reading for anyone curious about the origins and impact of our monetary system. In a world without cancer, Griffin challenges the conventional understanding of health, presenting compelling evidence that cancer is linked to a deficiency in a natural compound that can be found in 1,400 edible plants, but which have been deleted from modern diets due to their slightly bitter taste, such as is found in apple seeds. This book explores alternative perspectives that can defeat cancer simply by restoring small amounts of this substance to our daily diet. At realityzone.com, you'll find these best-selling titles and a collection of other thought-provoking works as well. From history and health to economics and geopolitics, there's something for everyone with a curious mind. Visit realityzone.com to discover exclusive offers when books are bundled. Save up to 20% and unlock deeper insights into the world around us.
Hey, this is Robert Scott Bell. You probably are sick of seeing me as the MC for the Red Pill Expo, but what can I say? I can't say no to Ed. What are you going to say? G. Edward Griffin calls you. So I love you all. Appreciate you so much. Many of you might know me from the Robert Scott Bell Show. I've been doing this show for over 25 years in broadcast media. Yes, you have a friend in the media that has been red-pilled and been red-pilling for decades. Oh, not as long as Ed, but hey, I'll take a fraction of that. That's okay. Also, I'm a homeopath. What does that mean? Don't be frightened. It means I bring the power to heal back to you where it belongs. It's not like I have it and give it to you. I just remind you of where it's originating from and then kind of tap you into some of those things that you're never going to hear about in the mainstream legacy media. No pharmaceutical pills here, shots needed, anything like that. I'm on 6 days a week, believe it or not. Yes, 6 days a week. So beyond the Red Pill Expo, you can still catch me up 2+ hours every day, Monday through Friday live, additional hour on Sundays. Where do you listen? Where do you watch it? Come on over to robertscottbell.com, and then there's a listen or live or watch live link. It's just /live, and you can see that here on the video. Now, another thing I like to do, because I don't sell products on my show, I certainly talk about the things I believe in. I consider them RSB approved. I've been at this for so long. So if you want to learn about how to get healthy and stay healthy, there's a whole section on the website you can see here, Products We Love section, and just click on anything to get discounts, the best stuff available for you, whether it be supplements, services, different things like that. There's a lot to learn, and I've been doing it for so long. I still have more to learn, but I love to teach as well. Also, one of the things I talk about, economic healing. You guys maybe don't know about this, but the United Precious Metals Association, which is one of the links we have here, you can set up a free account. It's like having your own trust. Just with an email, you could set up your kids, your grandkids. They can start saving in real money, sound money, gold, silver, gold backs. And that's available there for you for free. And we have that link up in the Products We Love section at robertscottbell.com. There's also so much more, including once a month, I meet with you, those of you who are really interested in learning more, with a Patreon support page. Thank you for supporting this message of health, freedom, and healing liberty. You can get more, you can give more. And that is with our Patreon page. We have a monthly meeting via Zoom where we see one another. You can submit questions that I can't answer into the public's domain, but in that private group, you can plug in and learn a lot as well. Wonderful opportunity there. So there's so much happening here at the Red Pill Expo. I just want to remind you that beyond the Red Pill Expo, we can stay in touch. We can keep the red pill bouncing, so to speak, and bring the power to heal back where it belongs with each and every one of you. So thank you to G. Edward Griffin and the crew at the Red Pill Expo for supporting this message of health, freedom, and healing liberty. And you'll always have a home here with me on the Robert Scott Bell Show, robertscottbell.com.
Welcome to Reality Zone, the official store for Red Pill University and Red Pill Expo, where we invite you to embark on a transformative journey toward uncovering the truths that lie beneath the surface of our modern society. Inspired by the powerful message of Take the Red Pill, our mission is to empower individuals to break free from the illusions propagated by fake news, corrupt politics, and institutional propaganda. Our carefully curated selection of books and recordings addresses the critical issues of freedom, health, and financial independence. Learn how elitist agendas threaten your rights and discover the healing power of nature, challenging the influence of big pharma. Explore the complex world of money and banking to reveal hidden systems affecting your wealth and liberty. Step into the reality zone, take the red pill, and embrace the knowledge that transforms your understanding of the world. But once you take the red pill, the illusion can never be restored. Once you enter the reality zone, you can never return to the twilight zone from which you came.
From the desk of G. Edward Griffin comes a powerful revelation: the chasm, collectivism versus individualism, the issue behind all issues. Collectivists are those who advocate collectivism, the belief that the group is more important than the individual, and that individuals must be sacrificed, if necessary, for the greater good of the greater number. Individualists are those who advocate individualism, the belief that the individual is more important than the group, because the group is merely an abstraction and exists only to the extent that individuals exist, and that the defense of individual rights is the greater good of the greater number. Dive into this concise 48-page work that lays bare the conflict shaping our world today: the chasm, collectivism versus individualism, at chasm.realityzone.com. Have you ever wondered why so much of what you hear in the media feels filtered or even manipulated? The truth is, most major news outlets are controlled by collectivists, people who think it's their duty to shape what you believe. So the common man ends up with a so-called correct opinion. At needtoknow.news, we do things differently. We provide unfiltered news and commentary as an antidote to the mainstream's newspeak. Here, there are no distractions with sports or celebrity gossip. Instead, we focus on what truly matters: your freedom, your health, and your financial security. And while we stand for individualism, we promise this: we'll never twist the facts just to fit our view. Even if the truth is uncomfortable, we'll report it anyway, and let truth have its voice. Join thousands who refuse to be misled. Sign up for the needtoknow.news newsletter today and start seeing the world as it really is.
Gee, Dad, can I ask you something?
Shoot, Chip.
Billy says his older brother's new phone is the niftiest thing he's ever seen. Says it practically reads his mind. Golly, is that even possible?
Possible, sure. Worth having, that's a different question.
What you mean? Wouldn't it be swell to have a phone that just knows stuff about you?
Would it be swell if the mailman read every letter before he delivered it, Chip?
Gosh, no. That'd be kinda nosy.
That's the word for it, all right. Seems some folks forgot why that matters.
Remember when modern meant your life got easier, not watched?
That's why Mark 3.7 doesn't build it that way, son. The ghost phone doesn't go poking around in your business to seem clever. It just does what you ask of it, nothing more.
Gee whiz. So it's not nosy at all?
Not one bit. Same with my ghost laptop right there on the table. Quiet as a Sunday afternoon.
Boy, that beats Billy's brother's phone by a mile.
I use mine for recipes and the church newsletter. It's never once tried to sell me something I didn't ask for.
So everybody in the house has one of these ghost things?
Whole house runs quieter for it, Chip. Always was the idea.
Some things never needed improving, just protecting.
Welcome to the Reality Zone, your ultimate source for knowledge and truth. At realityzone.com, we offer a wide selection.
Oh, I can do it. All right. Welcome back. It is the Red Pill Expo. We're going into the evening session. The truth is out there. Well, it's actually in here. So come on back. Everybody's enjoying the time talking with each other and going to exhibits, which is wonderful as well, to thank those who are supporting this most important Red Pill Expo. I'm grateful for all of y'all out there around the world watching, wherever you are. As I said, I'll always encourage you, whenever you have an opportunity to join us here in person, it is it's a game changer for you. It's really transformative. So I'm really grateful. We get to go into more of the truth. And this particular segment, we're going to go into climate issues. We've got Jonathan Kohler joining us. He's going to go a little bit more into it. I'm almost more interested in his musical stuff because it's fascinating when he's called superhuman clarinetist. But he's going to speak about the fake science related to coming from the United Nations about carbon dioxide. I think if I'm growing in my garden, I want more CO2. I want more plants. I want more food. That's a good thing, isn't it? But they're all telling us it's a toxic poison that's going to kill us. I think somebody's lying. And I don't think it's Jonathan Kohler. Let's welcome him to the Red Pill Expo stage. We're going to also have opportunity for Q&A at the end. We've got a microphone set up somewhere. We'll let you know at that point. But Jonathan, welcome to the stage. Thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate you. Okay.
Here. Make sure everybody can hear me okay. Okay. Everyone can hear that okay? Not too loud? Great. Wrong slide. There we are. So this is called the biggest con in human history. You'll see why in a second. The numbers will tell you. My name is Jonathan Kohler, as Robert told you, and Vegas is the perfect town for what I'm about to show you. Because Vegas is where the small cons happen out in the open. The house edge is printed on the wall, the odds are disclosed. At least they tell you they're taking your money. Compare that to the con I'm about to expose, because I'm going to pull back the curtain on the biggest con, literally, in human history. It's been running for 38 years. It's captured every major government on Earth. It's already extracted trillions of dollars from working people, and it wants to extract 150 trillion more. It's been peddled to your children at school, blessed by popes and prime ministers, awarded Nobel Prizes and even Academy Awards. And never, not once in 38 years, has a single one of its claims been supported by real world data. Today, we're going to run the tests that they've been running from for 38 years. So first, a little bit about me. I'm a Harvard-trained physicist, a climate and AI researcher, and a software developer. I serve on the Heartland Institute's Board of Policy Advisors, and I'm a member of the CO2 Coalition. Over the past year, I've published 6 climate papers with some very illustrious co-authors, Willie Soon, David Legates, Keston Green, Ole Humlum, and others from around the world. Willie, in particular, is my mentor and dear friend. He's been on the front lines of this fight for 35 years, and he's paid personally, professionally, and financially for telling the truth. This talk certainly stands on his shoulders. 2 weeks ago, I gave a version of this talk in Halle, Germany at the IKE International Climate Conference. That was a room full of physicists and engineers who eat differential equations for breakfast. This room is different, and that's a good thing. So what I'm going to show you here doesn't require a physics degree, just a little bit of high school math and the willingness to look. So we're going to start with the verdict in one sentence. Every major thing you've been told about climate change over the last 38 years comes from one organization that is endlessly parroted everywhere. It's called the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC. And I'm here to tell you that every major public-facing claim of the IPCC is scientifically invalid and categorically false. Not uncertain, not in need of more research, not the science is evolving, just plain false. And I don't mean politically false, I mean mathematically false, physically false. And I'm going to prove it to you now 5 times. But first, why does this matter? Because on the strength of these false claims, Western governments have committed roughly $150 trillion. By the way, that's more than the entire GDP of the planet, which is only about 126 trillion by 2050. They're using it to justify banning air conditioning, gas stoves, gas cars, banning nitrogen fertilizer, natural gas heating, red meat, and even air travel. They're using it to shut down the affordable energy that lifted 1 billion people out of poverty in the last 30 years, and they're canceling modern industrial civilization. They're doing it on the basis of a shell game with 5 empty shells. I call this the UN IPCC Circle of Lies. 5 nodes: GMST, CMIP, OHC, EEI, CO2. Don't worry about the acronyms yet. I'll unpack each one. Here's the trick. Each node points to and seems to support the next node. The first node validates the second. The second node validates the third, and so on. And the fourth, the fifth, and the fourth, the fifth, and then the fifth back to the first. But it's a snake eating its own tail. And when you lift each shell, you find nothing. It's all empty. That's the con. Each lie props up the next lie, but the whole ring is hollow. Not one of these 5 nodes taken by itself can stand up. So the IPCC never lets you look at them one at a time. They wave the ring in your face and utter the magic words, multiple lines of evidence. But you got to remember from your high school math that 5 times 0 equals 0. And for those of you who love Orwell, 2 plus 2 equals 4, not 5. So now I'm going to walk you around the ring and knock down each of the 5 shells, and when we're done, there will be nothing left of this framework that's propping up $150 trillion of policy. Shell 1 is called GMST, which stands for Global Mean Surface Temperature. You've all heard of it, right? Okay. And you probably all thought it was a real thing. It's not. You've been told over and over again that the planet has warmed by 1.1 degrees Celsius since 1850, that 1.5 degrees is the quote-unquote safe limit, that 2 degrees is catastrophic, and we must have net zero by 2050. Every carbon tax, every net zero target, every energy policy of every Western government is anchored to this one number, GMST. Remember that. Your entire future and that of your grandkids and kids has been mortgaged to GMST. They call it the most important number in the world. Now, take a deep breath, because this is the full red pill moment. GMST has no connection to reality, none. Just like a unicorn or a square circle or the tooth fairy, it's not simply wrong, it's not a measurement, it's not uncertain, it's not a physical quantity, period. Not all numerical calculations represent real physical things. GMST is a made-up number with a fake label, and that label is degrees centigrade glued onto it. To quote Shakespeare, it's full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Now, how can that be? Imagine I pick 2 real phone numbers, one in Boston and one right here in Vegas. I add them together and I divide by 2. I get an average phone number. 3 questions. Whose phone number is it? Is it a phone number? Does it mean anything? The answers to all 3 are no. Yes, indeed, it is a number, but it's not a phone number. Nobody's phone rings if you dial it. It doesn't connect you to anybody, and nobody calls it a phone number. All right, so what about temperature? Temperature is a physical property of one thing in one place that is sitting still. Very simple. That's it. That's the definition. Every physics textbook says that, and that's what your thermometer measures. Your thermometer works because it's in contact with one small local system, and it comes into what's called equilibrium with that system, and it reports the temperature there. The temperature in Boston has 0 physical connection to the temperature in Las Vegas. 0. They are separate, disconnected systems. There's no law of physics that lets you average them and get anything meaningful. The number you produce by saying average is a number, but it's not a temperature. Maybe a good way to put it is what Vegas does thermally stays in Vegas. Sorry about that. And it has nothing to do with what Boston does thermally. You can't average them to make a physical quantity. You can only produce a made-up number and slap a made-up label on it. Like you could call it the Boston-Vegas temperature. What's that? Now, if that's not enough for you, here's the second knife in the heart. In 2007, a dear friend of mine, a mathematician named Christopher Essex, one of the most brilliant in the world, and his co-authors published a peer-reviewed paper that showed the following. If you take the same raw thermometer data from around the world and you try 5 different perfectly legitimate averaging methods, you get 5 different answers. And more importantly, you get different trends. Some of the trends go up, some go down, and some stay the same. Same data, different averaging, different global warming. Which one is right? The answer is none of them, because there's no physical law that says which averaging method is correct, because there is no correct method because there is no such physical reality. The paper by Essex and his colleagues has been in the literature for 19 years now, and nobody's refuted it. Nobody's even tried to refute it. Now, 3 months ago, I published my own preprint called The Physical Tether Theorem. And in that, I generalized it mathematically and proved the same thing and more stuff from first principles of math and science. That also hasn't been refuted, and it can't be refuted ever, because you cannot refute 2 + 2 = 4 without giving up all of mathematics, okay? Now, some of you have heard people argue about the temperature record. They argue about, you've heard maybe urban heat islands, station siting, adjustments, homogenization, different things. Are the adjustments dishonest? Yes, mostly they are, and many whistleblowers have shown that. But that's not the important part. Even if every single thermometer on Earth were perfectly placed, perfectly calibrated, and perfectly reported, the global mean temperature would still be physically meaningless. The problem is not the data. The problem is a category error. You cannot fix a category error by cleaning up the data. Just like you can't average phone numbers into a phone number, no matter how carefully you clean up the phone book. That's why this argument matters. It doesn't depend on whether the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, is fudging surface stations, though they are, of course. It doesn't depend on whether the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, is adjusting the past to make the present look hotter, though they are. This con goes all the way down to basic physics. Here's the thing. To have a single temperature, a system has to be sitting still, sealed off, and settled down. A cup of tea left alone in a closed room has a temperature. But the planet Earth, there's a 173 petawatt light bulb. That's 173,000 trillion watts, always shining on one half of the planet, while a same amount of energy is going out into space all the time. That's roughly 10,000 times the primary power consumption of the entire human race, which is only 20 terawatts, about 20 trillion watts, okay? So, and the oceans, they're sloshing around, the winds are blowing, the storms are brewing, the ice is melting, the ice is forming. Nothing is sitting still, nothing is sealed off, and nothing about it is settled down. So the Earth does not have a temperature, period, full stop, end of story. It never has, it never will, and every honest physicist on Earth knows this. Pretending that it does doesn't make it so. Shell number 1 down. And with it falls the 1.5 degree Paris target. Not a physical threshold, just a number with a fake label. Did I go the wrong direction here with the slides? I think I did. Yeah, there it is. The 1.1 degree of warming since 1850, not a measurement. It's the output of an arbitrary averaging method applied to a bunch of unrelated numbers. And then this thing called ECS, or equilibrium climate sensitivity. That's the master parameter. It governs every climate model output. Its definition is the change in GMST for doubling of CO2. Meaningless minus meaningless equals meaningless. Every claim built on GMST is null and void. Now, let me tell you how and where they hide all this. In their most recent assessment report, called AR6, the IPCC used the word unequivocal 37 times. Here's the thing. Unequivocal is not a science word. It's a marketing word. Real science as Karl Popper taught us, requires what's called falsifiability. A real theory has to be capable of being proved wrong. If a theory can't be refuted by any evidence ever, it isn't a scientific theory, it's a religious claim. And when you intone unequivocal 37 times in a single report, you're chanting a godless catechism. You're practicing scientism, not science. Shell number 1, done. Shell number 2, CMIP, Coupled Model Intercomparison Project. In plain English, the computer climate models. The models that get quoted in every news article, the models that predict 2, 3, or 4 degrees of fictitious warming by the year 2100. Here's how those models are built. Somebody writes a huge computer program with hundreds of tunable knobs. Then they turn the knobs until the model reproduces the historical record of, wait for it, GMST. The thing we just proved doesn't exist. If the model can't reproduce the fake number, they either retune the knobs or throw the model away. Only the models that match the fake number get published. So every number that comes out of those models, every temperature projection, every cloud feedback, every climate sensitivity emerges from a machine that was hand-tuned to reproduce a physical fiction. Garbage in, gospel out. And it gets worse. Their headline parameter is called equilibrium climate sensitivity. Here's what that actually means. This is just a little bit in the weeds, but I think you'll appreciate this. They take 2 runs of a model, one with carbon dioxide at the pre-industrial concentration of 280 parts per million, and the other at double that, 560 ppm. Then they wait for the model to reach equilibrium, they compare the 2 temperatures, subtract them, and that's the equilibrium climate sensitivity. There's 2 problems with this. First, Earth, the planet we live on, is never in equilibrium, ever. Remember the 173 petawatt light bulb known as the sun. Energy flowing out, oceans, weather gradients everywhere. If your model reaches equilibrium, that proves that it's not modeling the Earth, because the Earth never does. Second, they don't run their models to equilibrium either. They just pretend that they do. To save money, they run the models for 150 years, watch the drift, and then they extrapolate the difference, and they call it effective climate sensitivity. But in practicing, the modeling people call it ECS anyhow. And of course, none of this touches reality because the real Earth has no equilibrium value to approximate in the first place. Remember, you can't approximate something that doesn't exist. This doesn't exist thing is an important thing here. So in short, climate sensitivity is an assumed extrapolation of an unreached state in a model that fails to match reality by the virtue of even having an equilibrium tuned against a target that doesn't exist. I bet no one's ever explained that on the evening news. That's the number. That's what the world's governments have committed $150 trillion to. And the models themselves, they contain essentially none of the actual physics that drives Earth's climate. They have no real microphysics of clouds. They have no real solar variability, no turbulence, no biological processes. The Earth's real climate system is Grand Canyon deep, and their models are 2 inches wide. And when their models drift into unphysical states, which they do almost all the time, just adjust the knobs until it behaves. Shell number 2, done. Now, shell number 3 is my favorite one. This is called ocean heat content, or OHC, because this is the one where the con is most brazen. Here's the setup. When people started noticing that surface temperatures weren't warming as fast as the models predicted, the IPCC pivoted, and then they said, well, the extra heat is being absorbed by the oceans. That's where the missing warming's gone. To measure this, they point to what's called the Argo program. Argo is 4,400 autonomous floats, basically drifting thermometers, spread across the world's oceans. Here's the official Argo map. Looks great, little dots everywhere, coverage everywhere, but if you didn't look closely, you may not have noticed that almost a third of the planet is missing from that picture. Here's the real picture. Every float that surfaced in one full cycle, the 12 days prior to March 25th of this year, look at the poles, virtually no floats beyond 60 degrees north or south, just plain blue ocean there. The entire Arctic, gone. Most of the Southern Ocean, gone. 25% of the ocean surface excluded entirely. Continental shelves, the Mediterranean, the South China Sea, everything that's ice covered. Now, the Argo program primarily measures only the top 2 kilometers of the ocean. Below that, in the deep ocean, lies half of the ocean's volume and half of its thermal energy. So how many floats do they have down there in the deep? 230. Yeah, you heard me right, 230 for the entire planet. But they call this, quote, nearly complete global coverage, unquote, perfect Orwell. Okay? Double speak. Every word in this climate business means the opposite of what it actually says. Now, let me tell you what the 4,200 upper floats actually do, because the deep ones are really irrelevant at this point. So each float descends down to 1,000 meters, drifts there for 9 days doing nothing, then it drops to 2,000 meters, then it slowly rises to the surface over about 8 hours, taking about 1,000 temperature readings on the way up. And when it reaches the surface, it fixes its GPS location and time and transmits the readings to a satellite. Then it starts over, down, drift, up every 10 days until its battery dies in a few years. So far, that's actual valid local data, but that's where reality ends. Because then there are 5 layers of statistical laundering that destroy all physical meaning of their computed OHC number. Step 1, every temperature reading a float takes as it comes from 2,000 meters to the surface gets pinned to a single GPS point at the surface, even though the deep readings were taken miles away hours earlier. Nobody knows where those readings actually came from. Nobody can, because the underwater ocean currents push the float around, and the float itself doesn't know where it is until it gets to the surface in 10 days. But they slap them all onto that one surface GPS pin. Step 2, they take 12,000 of those bad pins per month and smear it across a grid of 45,000 imaginary boxes covering all of the world's oceans. They call that gridding. What they actually have done is invent 45,000 numbers that they never measured. Step 3, they make up a fake normal over an arbitrary 15-year window using the same broken method. Then they subtract the fake normal from the fake current numbers and call the result the anomaly. Ghost minus ghost equals ghost. Step 4, they add up all these ghost anomalies multiplied by a bunch of assumed constants and slap a new label on it, ocean heat content. Step 5, they divide by the surface area of the Earth, slap on a third label, Earth's energy imbalance, EEI, and print it on the cover of the IPCC report as 0.7 watts per square meter delivered with a straight face. Even if you forget for a moment that all physical meaning of that number has already been completely destroyed, the uncertainty from the calculation procedure itself is at least 1 full watt per square meter, which means their fake signal of 0.7 is smaller than their own fake noise, which means their number is meaningless and statistically indistinguishable from 0. Now, the confession in their own words. Argo was never designed for this. Its founding document from almost 30 years ago says it was for real-time forecasting, for hurricane intensification, fisheries, weather forecasts, ship routing, search and rescue, with all of which have decision windows of hours to weeks, not 100 years. Nowhere in the founding documents of this program does it mention ocean heat content or Earth's energy imbalance. Not once. So how did Argo become the IPCC's smoking gun for global warming? I'll tell you exactly how, because we have the email. In October of 2009, during what's known as ClimateGate, a whole batch of internal emails from top UN IPCC scientists leaked out of the University of East Anglia in England. Somebody inside got a conscience, or somebody outside got in. Either way, the emails hit the internet and they were devastating. They showed the small circle of pseudoscientists at the very top of the IPCC food chain openly discussing how to hide the pause in warming, how to freeze out critics, how to keep skeptics out of the peer-reviewed journals, and how to hide the decline in data that didn't match their story. All in black and white emails. The mainstream press, of course, buried it. The BBC ran a puff piece, and every legacy outlet decided that the news was that the emails were stolen, but not about the shocking content of the emails. That was your first red pill moment on this topic, if you were paying attention. One of those emails was from a scientist named Kevin Trenberth. Kevin Trenberth is not some grad student. He was and is one of the biggest names in the field. Lead author on not one, not two, but 3 of the 6 IPCC assessment reports since the 1990s. In 2009, he was head of climate analysis at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, the same NCAR, by the way, that the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, announced in December 25 would be broken up because, quote, it's one of the largest sources of climate alarmism in the country, unquote. Now, OMB is not some partisan think tank. It's a career-staffed budget agency, can anyone say deep state, an office where the workforce leans overwhelmingly Democratic. And they're the ones who identified NCAR as a major source of climate alarmism. NCAR is a publicly funded science, quote, science center doing political advocacy. It's not science. That's a scandal. And Trenberth's own 2009 email tells us why. By the way, now Kevin is now 81 years old, retired in March of 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and moved back to New Zealand. But to this day, he holds the Emeritus Distinguished Scholar title at NCAR and is an honorary academic in the Department of Physics at the University of Auckland. When Trenberth speaks, the IPCC listens. Nobody else, hopefully, but. So in 2009, he wrote to Michael Mann, the hockey stick guy, and he copied the entire hockey team inner circle, every big name. Here's what he wrote. Quote, we can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and it's a travesty that we can't. The NASA series data shows that there should be even more warming, but the data are surely wrong. Our observing system is inadequate. Read that again. The data are surely wrong. Not the theory might be wrong. The data are surely wrong. That's not science. That's confession. That's the smoking gun. In 2009, their own top scientist admits in writing to the entire inner circle that the observations don't match the theory. In real science, when that happens, you throw out theory. In IPCC land, when that happens, you throw out the data. And that's exactly what they did. Over the next 12 years, they systematically repurposed Argo as the planetary energy accounting tool. They forced satellite measurements to agree with the Argo ocean numbers. And you'll notice those are 2 different things. The satellites are way up here, the ocean's way down there. Right? And they codified the result in their 6th assessment called AR6 in 2021, reporting 0.7 watts per square meter as the Earth Energy Imbalance, EEI. Now, the punchline. Our peer-reviewed paper on this, exposing all of it, was published in March of this year. Trenberth was asked to comment about our new paper, and here's what he said. Quote, it is absolute nonsense. I don't want to waste my time on it, unquote. We were ecstatic, by the way. That's it. That's his rebuttal, ladies and gentlemen. When the response to a peer-reviewed paper with over 1.5 million views on X is, I don't want to waste my time on it, you know you are directly over the target. Shell number 3, down. Okay, now shell number 4 is, as I mentioned, Earth's energy imbalance, EEI. And I want to spend just 2 minutes on it because you need to see how this con closes the loop. First, the name itself, Earth's energy imbalance. If you've ever looked at your own electricity bill, you may have noticed that energy is measured in kilowatt hours, but their number is in watts per square meter. Watts are a measure of power, not energy, so the name itself is already a category error, and honest scientists would have called this net radiative flux at the top of the atmosphere. The IPCC didn't pick the honest name, they picked the scary name that already includes in it the conclusion they wanted to sell, namely imbalance. So they called it Earth's energy imbalance. Right? Now, here's the trick. EEI is supposedly measured 2 ways. The first and the honest way is with real satellite instruments. The NASA series satellites sit at the top of the atmosphere, at the top of that diagram, those numbers. And they directly measure how much energy is coming in from the sun and how much is going out to space. Actual photons, actual physics, actual measurements. The second way is the Argo shell game that I just showed you. Not a measurement, a calculation built on a 1 part per billion measurement of the oceans, 5 layers of statistical laundering, a made-up baseline, and 0 physical meaning. Any honest scientist would lead with the satellite measurements and possibly check the ocean calculation against them. The IPCC does the opposite. So you see that imbalance down there, 0.7 down at the ocean. They lead with the fake and meaningless ocean number, 0.7, treat it as gold standard, and then adjust the real satellite data to match it. Go, there we are. That inversion of the actual measurement bent to fit the fake calculation is the entire con in one move. Now, guess what the unadjusted NASA series number of the satellites at the top is? You can see it right there, if you can see that. It's 4.3 watts per square meter, not 0.7. The Argo shell game said it was 0.7. So how did they reconcile that? Very easy, they don't. They just, wait for it, adjust the satellite data. Silently, they subtracted 3.6 watts per square meter out of the satellite record and forced it to match 0.7, and then not only said, now look, it matches, they also said, well, let me tell you one thing first. They hoped that they actually, in the text, mentioned in obtuse terms where they did this. If you look on page 935 of AR6, they tell you what they did, but they're hoping that nobody ever gets to page 935. And then, this is the part that would make even a Vegas card shark blush. They cite agreement between the two numbers as independent confirmation of each other. Two numbers that were forced to agree, cited as evidence that they agree. This isn't science. This is the 3-card Monty on the sidewalk outside of Circus with the free buffet. Shell number 4, down. Now we come to the biggest shell, carbon dioxide, CO2, the gas of life. This is where all the policy comes from. This is the shell they need to be true or the whole big con collapses, even more than the temperature con. The claim is this: CO2 that you emit stays in the atmosphere for hundreds to thousands of years. That claim is the entire foundation of the carbon budget idea. It's the reason for cumulative emissions targets. It's the reason for net zero by 2050. It's the cheap excuse for taxing the air that we breathe. If CO2 only stays in the atmosphere for a few years, and spoiler alert, it does, then emissions today aren't committing future generations to anything at all. Bye-bye, cumulative carbon budget framework. The IPCC and their globalist buddies need that multi-thousand-year CO2 con. So let's see exactly what the IPCC lie says. This is from AR5, box 6.1, page 472, chapter and verse. Quote, 15 to 40% of the CO2 we emit will remain in the atmosphere for longer than 1,000 years, unquote. Now, ordinarily, you'd want some evidence for a claim like that. So let me tell you what we actually have, because they don't have any. We have nature's greatest experiment ever. Between 1955 and 1963, the United States and the Soviet Union set off enormous amounts of atmospheric hydrogen bomb tests. Those tests roughly doubled the amount of radioactive carbon-14 in the atmosphere, all of it contained in CO2 molecules. And the CO2 molecules don't care which flavor of carbon they contain. Could be carbon-12, carbon-13, carbon-14. They all behave the same for our purposes here. Then in 1963, the limited test ban treaty stopped testing worldwide. The pulse that we humans began ended in 1963, and then nature's experiment began. Since then, for 60 straight years, scientists all over the world have measured how fast that extra carbon-14 in CO2 molecules has drained out of the atmosphere. This is the most precise experiment on CO2 persistence ever done. Not a model, not a simulation. Nature ran the experiment. All we had to do was watch. There's the graph. The blue dots are the data, the measurements. The red line is the virtually perfect single exponential fit. The IPCC has had this data for 40 years, but during those 40 years, they never once checked their model, known as the IPCC burn model, against the actual data. Willie Soon and I checked, and this is in our newest paper. Here's what Nature told us. That red line that you can see there is one clean exponential decay, one curve, one number with an 18-year time scale. Not 1,000, not 10,000, not hundreds of thousands, 18. And the fit between the data and our curve is 99.8%. Doesn't get much better than that. This is nature handing us the answer on a silver platter. Now, if we look at this next slide, come on, there it is, okay. Look at the black, orange, purple, and green curves above the straight red line. Go back here, yeah, the four curves at the top. Those are the IPCC burn models. They diverge from reality in the first year, and by 2020, they're off by more than a factor of 10x. And the departure from reality continues to grow faster and faster. After 200 years, the IPCC burn models are off by a factor of 18,500 from reality. This isn't a small correction. The entire foundation of net zero by 2050 is off by 4 orders of magnitude. How does the burn model manufacture a 1,000-year tail out of an 18-year physical process? 2 tricks. 1, they wrote into their model equation by hand that 22% of every emission stays in the atmosphere forever. There's no physics behind that. They just typed it in. Take it out, set it to 0, which is what the data shows, and every long tail claim in climate policy collapses. Trick 2, they wired the equation to drain into 3 separate reservoirs at 3 different speeds, as if the atmosphere emptied into 3 different depths of the ocean simultaneously. It doesn't. The real ocean is a serial cascade. CO2 comes from the atmosphere, goes into the surface circulates to the middle, and the middle circulates to the deep. Basic physics tells us that a serial cascade like this collapses to the one fast time constant of the surface ocean absorption, which, by the way, is exactly what the data shows. The IPCC burn model uses the wrong equations and gets the wrong answer by design. Now, one more piece of beautiful and independent evidence. We all know and agree that CO2 is rising in the atmosphere. They want you to believe that the rise is caused by us humans. It is not, period. Here's how we know this. Fossil fuels carry an isotopic fingerprint, let's call it. Nature carries a different isotopic fingerprint. If the CO2 rise was driven by fossil fuels, the new CO2 entering the atmosphere would carry the fossil fingerprint. Pretty simple, okay? Very simple. In 2024, a dear colleague and brilliant Greek scientist named Dimitris Koutsogiannis measured the fingerprint directly. He was the first one to do it, using 44 years of data from remote clean air data gathering stations around the world. The result is shown on this graph. It's a little complicated, I won't get into the details, but the fingerprint of the new CO2 is nowhere near the fingerprint of fossil fuels, but it is exactly the fingerprint of, guess what? Nature. And it's constant across more than 4 decades, while human fossil fuel burning tripled. And it's constant across both hemispheres. It's rock solid. And you can see the numbers there. So now, 3 independent lines of evidence. 1, the 18-year time scale. 2, the no measurable sign of fossil fuel isotopic fingerprint on the new CO2. And 3, simple bookkeeping, all point in the same direction. The CO2 rise of the last 60 plus years is overwhelmingly natural. The human contribution to the rise is negligible and undetectable. Now, before anyone panics, I want to be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that humans don't emit CO2. Of course we do. What I am saying is that the natural fluxes of carbon dioxide into and out of the atmosphere are so much larger than the human part, and the atmospheric residence time of CO2 is so short that human emissions get processed and cycled through natural carbon dioxide sinks like plants, dirt, and ocean, essentially as fast as we produce them. Also, and very importantly, CO2 is not a pollutant. CO2 is plant food. Every leaf on Earth is made from atmospheric CO2 that a plant pulled out of the sky and converted into carbohydrates. CO2 is literally the gas of life. More CO2, more life. You can see it in this diagram here at different levels of CO2. Life on the planet requires CO2. Below about 150 parts per million, plants die, all of them. And guess what? We die shortly thereafter. Shell number 5 down. Okay, now let's walk through this. Come on, there we go. Let's walk through the ring one last time. Shell 1, GMST, the temperature that doesn't exist, falsified. Shell 2, CMIP, computer models tuned to a fiction, falsified. Shell 3, OHC, ocean heat content, a meaningless statistical hallucination built on 1 part per billion coverage, falsified. Shell 4, EEI, Earth's energy imbalance, cooked to 0.7 from a real measurement of 4.3 and statistically not different from 0, falsified. Shell 5, CO2 persistence and human cause, off from reality by a factor of 18,000 at 200 years and no human fingerprint, falsified. With these 5 cons down, every single downstream number and metric they've been selling you collapses. Big table, and that's only a sampling of the ones that collapse. 1.5 degree target, meaningless. 2 degree guardrail, meaningless. Global warming potentials, meaningless. CO2 equivalent numbers, meaningless. Remaining carbon budgets, meaningless. You get there's a theme here? Every net zero pathway, meaningless. Every social cost of carbon estimate, meaningless. Every detection and attribution regression, meaningless. In fact, we did a little bit of IPCC lie accounting and found more than 30 separate IPCC metrics, the ones cited in every government report, every UN document, and every news article, all of them physically meaningless because all of them are downstream of these 5 falsified nodes. Let me say it once more for the sake of $150 trillion. Every IPCC climate metric is physically meaningless. Now, the IPCC has a rehearsed last-ditch defense when you back them into this corner. They say multiple lines of evidence. He went that away. That's the mantra, multiple lines. But they're not lines, they're the same line, 5 nodes, all lies. And remember from the beginning, your math test, 5 times 0 equals 0. 38 years, all lies, 0 foundation. Words lied, math did not. And I'll close with a few asks now. First, share this talk. I'll post the video on X as soon as it's available. All 5 of the papers I referenced today are available at my website, papers.jkohler.com, freely downloadable, fully cited. Send them to your legislators, to your school, college kids, or your friend who still thinks that polar bears are dying. Because when you have the data in your hand, the con collapses in the face of the first honest question. Second, stop conceding the terminology. Language is how they win before the argument starts. Orwell knew this extremely well. Don't say carbon emission. Say CO2, the gas of life. Don't say carbon footprint. Ask them, what does that even mean? Don't say climate change. Ask compared to what, on what time scale, in what location. There is no global climate. Climate is a purely local phenomenon. Don't say the science says. Ask them which data, which paper, which measurement, and which uncertainty. By the way, 99% of the time, they don't know. They're just repeating dogma. And finally, never, ever say global temperature, because it doesn't exist. Every honest question you ask exposes a piece of the con. Third, demand energy abundance. Cheap, dense, reliable energy, i.e. hydrocarbons and nuclear. Energy is the foundation of every free and prosperous society in human history. Cheap energy is why people don't starve in the winter, why hospitals work, and why kids in Africa can read after sunset. Energy poverty is not sustainability. Energy poverty is death, real death, measurable death. And the people pushing net zero know that. It's not an accident, it's the point. If you want to control a population, control its energy supply. That's the oldest play in the book. Fourth, stand your ground and don't be intimidated anymore, ever. When they say unequivocal 37 times, they're admitting they can't defend it any other way. When they call you a denier, a term borrowed straight from Holocaust denial to smear you with the worst possible slur, they're admitting they can't defend it any other way. When they refuse to debate, as Kevin Trenberth just did to us, they're admitting they can't defend it any other way. When Anthony Fauci says, I am the science, when John Kerry lectures farmers in a private jet on the way to a climate summit, when the WEF tells you you'll own nothing and be happy, they're all telling you the same thing. They can't defend it any other way. So they use force. They use guilt. They use social pressure. They use ridicule. And they use kids on TV screaming they'll die. All of that is a tell. All of that is Trenberth's waste my time answer, dressed up in different costumes. Fifth, and most important, trust math, trust physics, and trust your own eyes. The universe is a very stubborn thing. It doesn't care what the New York Times says. It doesn't care what Al Gore says, or what the president says, or what your kid's 5th grade teacher says. The truth doesn't need force. It only cares about what's true. And the truth, when you look, is stubbornly, beautifully, and permanently on the side of the honest observer. Galileo, 400 years ago, related to the Grand Duchess Christina that God had authored 2 books. One was the Bible, and the second book was the universe itself. And a few years later, in another publication, he wrote, quote, "Philosophy is written in this grand book, I mean the universe. It is written in the language of mathematics." Math is God's universe speaking. We listened. The IPCC did not. Thank you. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, we should have some time, right? Great. So come up on stage. Yep. Her mic's not turned on.
Okay, I live in Iowa, and we are fighting the CO2 pipeline. They want to put it a 10-mile wide corridor, 5 miles from my house, 1,900 homes on our lake. It's disastrous. It's high-pressured CO2 from the ethanol plants, and the best cornfields are around, with the highest yields are around that ethanol plants because it wants that CO2 release, right? It feeds the plants. So what do they want to do? They want to pay a company with our tax dollars, the 45Q, and this company is going to make billions off our tax dollars, and they want to run the pipeline up to North Dakota and put it in the caverns down below. A gas does not stay down. Okay? So we got so many politicians. I'm in the John Birch Society. We've done our research. Our governor took $180,000 from Bruce Rastatter, who owns Summit Carbon Solutions, that wants to make all this money on this pipeline. He's never put a pipeline in the ground. I live in the Raccoon River Valley. It's hills and valleys. What's going to happen when it gets really cold? They're going to leak. Okay? 7,000 people died of a natural CO2 leak in Africa. The whole village, 9 miles, totally polluted the lake. Satara, Mississippi. Are you familiar with Satara, Mississippi? 50 people went to the hospital. A leak that happened right there in their town. And what does CO2 do? You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it. It suffocates in 4 minutes because it takes the oxygen out of the air, and our machines, our cars will not start. You can't get away from it. So there's 50 people that brain damage and they can't work anymore. They're lucky they're to be alive in Satara, Mississippi. So what do? How do we stop this pipeline? They're trying to do eminent domain. They're pushing for it. You know, again, it's the legislators, right? A big part of it.
First of all, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're saying it's a CO2 pipeline?
Yes, they're taking it from the ethanol plants.
Okay.
Okay. And then
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh,
but
you're
CO2,
not.
No,
You have to look into that.
CO2 doesn't remove oxygen from anything, so that's not true. But and CO2 doesn't kill people unless you're in an enclosed space at above like 50,000 parts per million. Some submarine, you know, if a CO2 leaks into the atmosphere, it disperses very quickly. But I'm not familiar with this CO2 pipeline.
This is high pressured, and it's going to be really cold when it comes out, if it does leak. So to my knowledge, it's like the plague of Egypt, and it's going to float around.
As I said, I don't know anything about this technology or what you're talking about. It has nothing to do with what I was talking about.
Okay, well, it's CO2. Yeah. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I just wondered if you knew about it.
No.
Have you heard about it? It's 5 states. It's going to affect.
Okay. All right. Do we have another question? Did you have a question, sir? Anybody else?
She's entirely right.
Hold on. If you want to speak here, do you have a question?
Oh, I had
a comment?
I do have a question now.
Okay, come in.
Yeah.
Come in.
Because in science we
Gus, talking to that, please.
And she expressed the idea that CO2 could displace oxygen. So the event she's talking about in Africa, if this room was entirely filled with CO2, it would have displaced the oxygen and those people died. She was right about that.
Well, if the entire room was filled with 50,000 parts per million or more, then people would start to feel some distress, yes. But that's an irrelevant hypothetical. I mean, we're not talking about that anyhow. What does that have to do with anything that I said in my talk? Absolutely nothing.
She was trying to support the idea of your talk, I think. And her CO2, you're not understanding. If this was entirely CO2, like the release in that volcanic caldera, it displaces the oxygen.
No, volcanoes release negligible amounts of CO2, almost none. They release large amounts of SO2, and they release large amounts of particulates that go into the atmosphere, and the particulates cause increased reflection of solar shortwave back out. But the amount of CO2 released by even the largest volcanoes is totally negligible.
Okay, one more question. Come on up.
I was wondering how chemtrails affect the temperature, whether you came across any data in relationship to that.
I haven't studied chemtrails, but what I've read about them is they exist, but they're small amounts of stuff. I mean, but I have not studied chemtrails.
Did you have a question as well?
Yes. Well, not a question so much as I wanted to address something, sir.
Real quick, please.
My name is Lisa Von Gelder, and I'm with the John Birch Society. We have a documentary on the carbon capture pipelines that are in Iowa, South Dakota, and the danger of these things. And if you're not aware, they're very dangerous. I have a video here of a pipeline burst, and they come.
Well, I can believe that if they're.
And it is in the valley, and she was right. The vehicles can't drive. Emergency vehicles couldn't get through.
So you're talking about carbon capture.
Yes.
And this is a means of taking away the captured
Right,
carbon.
and they're shoving it up into the shale fields.
Carbon capture is a really idiotic idea because.
Thank you.
So anybody doing carbon capture is nuts and anti-science because there's no reason to capture carbon. And so I guess what you're saying is that in order to ship this carbon around, they compress it, make it very cold, and put it in pipelines, which of course makes it dangerous, not because it's carbon dioxide, but because it's compressed and cold now. And if you release it, you're right, it will fall down. And if someone's nearby when a whole bunch of cold, heavy carbon dioxide comes out, they could be hurt by that. But the first answer is that there's no reason to do carbon capture. It's the gas of life. It should go up. It should go wherever it wants to go. You know?
Okay. Jonathan, for people that want to know more after this event, where is there a best website to follow up or even communicate with you?
You can email me or you can get to me on X. It's at Kohler, Kohler, on X, and my email address is kohler@jonathankohler.com. Yep.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Jonathan Kohler, everybody. Give me a microphone check. There we go. Thank you so much. There is a lot going on this planet. And as I said, so many people have wide varieties and very narrow focal points as far as the research. And so it's not unusual for someone with an expertise here to not know. I mean, when people approach me about things, it's like, well, I never heard of that. That's interesting. Let's look into it. But that's part of what we do here, is that we can share information that not all of us have, and then we can dig deeper on it. So this is a good opportunity to do that. We got another lecture coming up here. And Jonathan, if we can get your microphones to the next talk, we're coming up in just a moment here. So how are you guys holding up? Day one's almost done. Everybody good? Yeah? Too much? Not enough? All right. We also have, for those that signed up for it, a VIP dinner afterwards, and give you a little bit of heads up as they're switching the microphones here for tomorrow, just to let you know why it only gets better from here. We're going into Sunday morning with John Schaefer, how 5 years as a J6 prisoner changed his worldview. And one of my favorites, Dr. Lee Merritt. Anybody met Dr. Lee Merritt? Dude, does she go deep? And she goes into some great history. I love her. She's going to go into exposing some of the. Have you ever heard when this is, when I made that post, it was just an innocent post sharing my story about my kids and raising them without vaccines and antibiotics. And suddenly the trolls came out and said, but what about smallpox? I'm like, oh my gosh, do you know that what the medical doctors did in response to smallpox resulted in more death than the smallpox itself, and that the homeopaths and the naturopaths and the herbalists and the eclectic, all of that knew what to do to respond. And it wasn't to put mercury chloride on the skin and poison the body further, resulting in automatic death. So the mortality rate of people that went to see doctors, allopathic doctors during smallpox, and we can go to typhoid and typhus, was 50% or higher. Whereas those that went to see homeopaths, and these are in the references in the early 20th century, it was like a 1, 2, or 3% kind of a mortality rate, was almost non-existent. So the response, even in acute scenarios that we've been told to believe, things like polio, they said it's one thing, yet they neglect to recognize that where it was occurring was where they were spraying DDT prolifically. And there were other factors associated with that in the 1940s, 50s, and other things that occurred. But again, it's context, it's terrain, and everything. All right, so it looks like we got her wired up. So let's go to our next talk, which is going to be really cool. And let me see if I can find the right. I went to Sunday already. Welcome, Lynette. Hello. Lynette Zhang is up with us here. And we're going to be talking about some economic stuff, right?
Oh,
Monetary
yeah,
things?
we are.
Oh, yeah, we are. So I'll let her introduce herself since she's ready to rock and roll here. Everybody, welcome Lynette Zhang to the Red Pill Expo stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me 2 seconds to get my props ready because you guys know I like my props. They make a point. Okay. One more little thing and I will be ready to rock and roll. Okay. This is the one I want. All right. So, thank you all for being here. It's really an honor to be here with people that are brave enough to ask the questions that most other people just accept. Okay, so I can't see, can I only see it there? Just kind of need to know what I need to look at in here, but is it that all I see here is the Red Pill Expo thing. So there we go. Okay, good. Thank you so much. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Lynette Zhang, and I am the founder and CEO of Zhang International. I've studied currencies and currency life cycles since 1987 as a stockbroker at Shearson. And I was there on Black Monday in '87. So I learned really early that markets can look stable until they do not. But I'm not really here today to talk about any particular investment or a market. I'm here to talk about what's underneath all of it, the money they're valued in. And oh, by the way, your access to it. We're going to begin with the ship of Theseus. This is a 2,000-year-old thought experiment, and it asks, if you replace a ship one plank at a time, is it still the same ship? If gold and silver define the sails, and you look at the ship, but now the ship is defined by a debt-based dollar, are we still on the same monetary ship? And how do they make that change with people not really knowing? Well, this is a pattern that changes the planks. Create, debase, replace. That's just 3 little words. Yet once you understand them, monetary history looks very, very different. And today we're going to be talking about the transitions between systems, from ownership to permission to control. What if your bank account is turned off? You need permission to access the wealth that you've managed to accumulate in there. Now, most people think that they're paid in money, but they're not. You're paid in debt. And, you know, we're laughing, but we all accept it. And we're forced to deal with the inflation, which, by the way, is not a monetary phenomenon. It is a fiat money phenomenon. So I'm going to show you what money's really supposed to do. It's supposed to be a unit of account so you can value and price things, a medium of exchange for trading and barter, a standard of payment so that you're fairly paid for your labor and you can settle debts, and arguably the most important function, and the one they'd rather you never think about, as a long-term store of value. Because money is really a tool to store any labor that you generate today for use in the future at the same level of purchasing power, whether that's tomorrow or 10 years or 1,000 years. Only gold fulfills all of those functions, critical functions. It is universal, meaning it's used all over the world. It is decentralized, it is private, and is sound money outside of the banking system. This is critically important, especially with the direction that they're taking us in today. Every single portfolio needs a sound money foundation, as well as surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation. Communities become arguably the single most important thing that I ever really talk about, and shelter. Because these are all the things we need to be self-sufficient and independent. And quite honestly, there's a lot to do there, and you need community because everybody brings something different to the table. But you need a foundation in sound money. Now, gold and silver protect labor. This isn't rocket science, it's just logic, because they limit the number of claims against the money. So therefore, governments cannot inflate away the value of your work, because that's really what money's supposed to represent. Never told that either, are we? But I want you to keep in mind those three words: create, debase, replace, because I'm going to show you how they do all of this. This is the kickoff to this fiat money experiment. It started prior to 1914. This is where I have this. I imagine this is going to be quite challenging to see. This is a $1 gold coin, a 20th, roughly a 20th of an ounce of gold. See how tiny it is? But it's important and it matters because it forces discipline and it restricts governments and central banks from creating too many claims against this. That's why gold and silver work. It limits the claims and it puts the power in the people's hands. Now, this is something that I came across, and you know, whenever I see anything unusual, I'll grab it and I'll put it over there until I have time to watch it. This is probably one of the greatest finds that I ever made, actually. But that same little 20th of an ounce, that was a $1 gold coin. After the Federal Reserve was legalized, well, these are the gold reserves that we had, but after the Federal Reserve was legalized, that 20th of an ounce, this little teeny piece of gold, now back $2.40. This is an overview. I'm going to take you deep into the belly of the beast with this one. This is an overview. So what you're looking at is the gold reserves that we had. And oh, what is that thing that just came up there? How about corporate debt that was created? I'm going to show you that in more detail. Once the public lost the ability to convert dollars into gold, all of those corporate debt claims exploded. It's the way they always do it. I'm going to show it to you in more detail in a second. But all of that was monetized as what? Federal Reserve notes. Huge. Can you see that inflation? Now, they didn't release all of that at once because it would have been far too noticeable, but they did create it, and make no mistake, that's private corporate debt. And then in 1960, and again, we're going to go into this in more detail, but in 1960, the claims against our gold grew so large, We had to go off the gold standard. There was really no choice. So let me show you how it all started, because it's really quite fascinating. There are gold reserves, nice and solid, and then bam, corporate claims. All of a sudden, do you see that straight up? This is how they started to convert sound money, gold, into corporate debt. And we didn't even realize it, though we lost quite a bit of purchasing power. But all of that new money that they put into the system, that's what created the Roaring 20s. Happy days are here again. They were feeling all of that money printing, and they didn't even know why. But this is why, because all of a sudden, all these corporate claims became money. What is that? I'm going to show it to you in more detail, but that was the kickoff. I'm venturing to say, did you ever see that chart before? I know, what a find. By the way, I don't want you to take my word for anything. Just give us a call. We'll give you the links to all of the research that went into this piece today. Do your own due diligence. Form your own opinions. But this is the kickoff. Roughly 2.5 times the amount of money to the level of gold. Remember, that little 20th of an ounce was a $1 gold coin. Now it backed $2.40. Well, it was okay as long as not too many people asked for the gold. But let's just keep going, because, wow, look at that. Governments and central bankers need you to think that nothing is changing, that it's just a continuation as always, but they know how to do this. First, they start with sound money. That's gold. That's a $20 1 ounce gold coin, roughly 1 ounce. Then they bring out the gold certificate. See that nice little gold bar there, or circle? Okay, they must be the same thing. After all, I could walk into any bank with this and walk out with this. So they must be the same. But at the same time, they came out with the Federal Reserve note. Now, can you see how closely these two look? So people thought for 20 years, all three of them operated inside of the economy at the same stated face value. Every single one of those were 20 bucks. So people got used to them, and they got used to thinking, well, they're all the same. There's no difference between the two. The public thought all three were money, but only gold is sound money. The others are claims or debt. But you think nothing has changed when in reality, everything important has changed. And I'm going to show you that, because what is this? A Federal Reserve note. It's in your wallet. You're walking around with it. You've agreed to work for it. Try and save it. You wonder why it's losing value? Because it is actually a debt instrument. It's not money, it's debt. You have to really think about that, because you have to ask yourself, is that okay? But of course, once everybody got used to using these claims and the debt instruments, it was pretty easy to take the gold away from the people. And this is critical, because gold enabled the public to have real sound money outside of the banking system. And that's what gave the public their power, because it was outside the system. We've heard those words before too. So then public had to lose power, because after all, we have to take the gold away from the public. And you saw that overall chart. Once they did that, that debt just exploded, because you had no way to protect yourself after that. And you didn't realize it. But what happened after the public lost convertibility? Well, this is the purchasing power of the consumer dollar. That small shopping cart represents the most purchasing power that the dollar will ever have. I mean, it had the most in 1913. This is 1933. That large cart is just so you can see this loss better. So those are exactly the same. So after the public could no longer protect themselves from inflation, there was a 69% overnight devaluation. Can you see the loss of purchasing power in that cart? Only 31% remained out of the dollar of 1933 in terms of value. That's your labor. If I can get you to understand one thing, it's that money is supposed to be a store of value for your labor. So when they create inflation, they're robbing you of your time and your freedom and really everything that you hold dear. So, oh, that went a little quick. Let me see if I can get that back. All right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this part. This is after 1933, and you saw those debt claims explode. This is the gold. And can you see in 1960, foreign governments got to do what the public could no longer do, because we had the most gold in 1948 when the US dollar became the world reserve currency. It's that gold that gave it its credibility and the world the confidence. But as we kept printing more money, creating more debt, exporting inflation, the world saw what was really happening. And so they were sending in dollars in exchange for gold. And you can see 1960, negative gold in excess of foreign demand claims. So, you know, part of what you have to wonder is, if those claims are in excess of what we can do, a lot more than what we can do, well, what do? Either the government has to go back and redo the promise, or they change the rules. They did that in 33, they changed the rules. And they did it again in 1971. But if you wonder why President Nixon took us off the gold standard, there you go. Too many claims, not enough gold. Now, 1965, silver was removed from new dimes and new quarters. The last vestige of what the public could use in terms of money to protect their purchasing power. But again, just like they did in 1914, they allowed the base metal coins and the silver coins to go along side by side. They all worked in the vending machines the same way. At the cash register, they got the same face value. So people didn't realize that anything was different. They thought they were the same, but they were not the same. After that, I will tell you at the booth over there, we have dime cards. This is such a good example of substitution. And when you see it, you can tell, because the dimes that were minted prior to 1965 were silver, real silver. The ones that were minted afterwards, base metal. There's a little copper color in there, but you don't even get the value of the copper. So go to our booth, ask for a dime card, have that conversation, look for yourself, look on the edge. You'll see the difference between the two, and then share it. Because what we're really trying to do is create a global movement to demand sound money back in the system again. Might not matter to some of us. I mean, I'm kind of old. It doesn't really matter as much to me, but I have children and I have grandchildren and someday maybe even great-grandchildren. And we have to get sound money back in the system again for them. And this is the opportunity. Because after they got rid of the silver for the public and the gold for the public, and you saw all of those claims against the gold that we had, we were already negative. Well, then they had to remove gold from the world. These are major planks being removed and changed in these ships, but they have to happen slowly, because otherwise you notice and you might not agree. That's that % inflation target. Yeah, that's slow enough that you don't realize what's happening, but they're robbing you every second. And what did President Nixon? Some of you might remember that. I certainly remember that. I was a teenager when this happened. And if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today, but not the next week, or the next year, or the next 10 years, right? They have to maintain your confidence, especially now that we were on a pure debt-based system. This is critical. Why do you think they check that all the time? They're looking at consumer confidence, inflation expectations, because it's a con game. But people are starting to wake up more and more because, oh, now affordability. Well, if we were back on a gold standard and we had silver in our money, the public would have power again. That's where I want to go. But I want you to see the transition to the fiat money, because it's still a unit of account and a medium of exchange, and arguably even a standard of payment, at least for a minute. But the most important function, the one that really protects your labor, that store of value, nope, no more. So instead of the 4 functions of money, we're down to 3 functions of money. Anybody that knows, are you saving dollars? Of course not. This is a very intelligent group, especially in this area. But I want you to really think about something that's very profound, because this is a reversal and we have to make another reversal on this. For thousands of years, sound money, physical gold, anchored debt and created limitations and protected the value of your labor over time. But after that, now unlimited amounts of debt anchor fiat money. Inflation is not a monetary phenomenon. It is a fiat money phenomenon. It is by design. Governments, you know, they wanted to tax you without you protesting. Well, inflation does that, right? That's that inflation tax. And corporations want to pay you less. Well, if you're used to getting $5, you're not going to accept less. But if that $5 spends like less, there's your K-shaped economy. Not in your benefit. We have to take our power back, because these changes happen plank by plank by plank, and you don't see them happening. I don't know how many people are aware that even after 1971, like they did in 1933, after they took away your ability to protect yourself, there are more devaluations in the US. People say, oh, they won't confiscate again. Oh, they won't do an overnight devaluation. Well, that goes against history. This is not me. That happened to come out of the New York Times. So in 1971, convertibility for governments was suspended. And then a little while later, an overnight 10% devaluation of the dollar and a reset in the gold price. And then again, 2/12/73, second 10% overnight devaluation and a reset of the gold price. I don't know. I was alive then. I was born in 1954. I actually didn't remember those devaluations. 10%, that's 20% aside from all the inflation. I don't know. It happened before. Do you think it might happen again? We're going to find out, aren't we? So what was the result of it? Okay, you guys, what was the result of it? Well, now there's no limitation on how much they can create. Wait a minute. Okay. Right? I wish it was that easy that they could run out of it and stop. But the more they do, the less value everything out there has. And what's the result of all of this? Well, debasement. Here, you're slavery, absolutely right. Treason? Well, I think we need to have a little treason in here because I disagree with them and it's not okay with me. I mean, aren't you tired of working for debt? Right? So here is the purchasing power of the consumer dollar. This is from the Federal Reserve Education Department. One of my very favorite websites, if you're not familiar with it, it's the FRED, F-R-E-D. Do yourself a favor. Go on there in the search bar. This happens to be the purchasing power of the consumer dollar. And so I think that's great to look at. And it's something I pay attention because stocks can go up, right? Inflation makes all of those assets inflate, you know, stocks, real estate, even incomes. People feel wealthy for a while until they realize, go on a little bit longer and the currency is debased. By 1971, we only had 24 cents out of the original dollar's worth of purchasing power. Where are we now? Anybody have an idea? This is going, what is this doing? Oops, nope, I'm not ready for that one yet. Sorry about that. No, officially, we've broken 3 cents. This is official. So, you know, governments and central banks, they can jerry rig the formulas, which means it's worse than that, right? 0.029 cents. What can you buy when you go to the grocery store? Not a whole lot, right? Okay, so now I'm going to give you a big overview from the beginning to the end, and then we're going to talk about where we're headed. Create, yes, monetary systems start with gold so that you are confident. That's the anchor. But then they need more flexible money. And so the Federal Reserve was created or legalized in 1913, and we've seen the result of that. That big dip that you see out of the chute, that's that $2.4 for every $20th of an ounce of gold that they held. So yeah, happy days we're here again. When you get a little bit of recovery, you feel like, okay, things are getting back to normal. They never get all the way back to normal. Debase, and here we are. 2008, I'm telling you, I knew it then, I've been saying it since then, and I'll say it today. The system died in 2008. So now they have to go for a replacement. I personally have been watching Bitcoin since it was $7 a coin. I don't own any of it because I knew as soon as I saw it that it was the Trojan horse to get normalcy in the system and get people comfortable using digital currencies. So where are we going? Well, I don't know. We've seen this pattern with all the debt going up. Haven't we seen that? Does this look familiar? It's not a coincidence. This is how they do it. They make you comfortable with it, so you think nothing has changed. But you always have to ask, not just what do we gain by this? I mean, it's so much better. It's more modern. It's outside the system. Does anybody here, I don't think this crowd would believe that cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin are still outside the system, do you? Anybody here, maybe a show of hands that thinks it's still outside the system? Yeah, I didn't think so. But there are people that will still have that argument with me, or at least attempt to have that argument. It's the normalcy bias, right? And they change the reals, change the promises, they change the rules. Stable coins, all right, they're setting it up. And who can issue stable coins? Anybody, pretty much. Corporations. So I showed you in the beginning how they took corporate debt and converted it and got us to think that it was actually money when it's corporate debt. Well, they're doing the same thing with stable coins to strengthen the dollar, or rather to create an artificial market for dollars and treasuries and all of that debt. But they're transitioning us into a new system, and we have to fight that. Look, I'm not saying that these things are going away. They're not. They're here, and there might be some good things about it. But what we can also do is demand redeemable gold back in the system again. Because if you can't take it out, how do you know that it's actually there? We have to become our own central bankers at this point, or you're going to have no choice. If everything you have is intangible and they say jump, you're going to have to say how high. I met a trucker from Canada who was there when Trudeau cut everybody off. It was an interesting conversation, absolutely. So you need real sound money outside of the system, and we need to come together in community and demand it. One person can't do anything, but there's 8.4 billion people in this world, and I believe that 3% of them can make a difference. So what does that look like? Because you have to ask, not just what am I gaining, but what am I losing? Well, we know about the store of value function. That was gone when we transitioned to a pure debt system. But now there are two other functions that are critically important that are really at risk. One is the standard of payment for fair labor. If you read what the central banks talk about in a digital currency, they're going to guarantee you no inflation. Nope, no inflation. You just give us that digital currency. Why? Because negative rates are a choice. Yeah, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to save up money that I'm losing value on, and I'm going to loan it to you and say, sure, give me back less than I loaned you. Well, I might do that for one of my children, but I'm not going to do it for a government or a corporation. And yet that is what's going to happen. Because once all those rails are in and your money is immediately deposited into your bank account, your access is no longer absolute. You have loaned the bank that money, and with negative rates, you're not even going to be fairly paid for your labor. If that's the only option we have. Well, what else? Well, a medium of exchange. Except that these individual corporations like Amazon or the banks like JP Morgan or Visa and MasterCard and whoever else is going to issue these stable coins, and always be careful of the language and what things are named, they're going to have it inside of their little ecosystem. And so it is quite possible, quite probable that you're going to lose a lot of choices in your medium of exchange. And what does that mean? That means that if we don't do something about this and this all goes through, we're likely to have one function yet left, and that's just a way to price stuff. We really have to look in the mirror. We really have to say, I mean, we are at the 8th hour. We really have to say, if not me, who? And if not now, when? But we can look at examples, and we have to be cautious because we're hearing so much about these asset-backed securities. Well, here's Zimbabwe. I've been following them for a really long time. And in fact, where is it? Well, I had it, but I don't have it anymore. I have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. This happens to be a $500 million bolivar, right? People get blinded by numbers, but numbers, 10 trillion times zero is still zero. But look at this, it's new, it's awesome, it's so much more secure, it's more modern, it goes around the system, it's fabulous. And yet, with Zim Gold in there, which is all digital, you cannot take possession of it. They're sitting at the highest CPI inflation, and they did an overnight reset. If it was redeemable, if the gold was redeemable, the likelihood of them being able to get away with that would be pretty nil, because people would rush to pull the gold out of the system. So don't be fooled if somebody says something is backed, because it probably is simply pegged to a market that's easy for them to manipulate, because that's their job. Their job is to lie, and let's lie a little bit more. So This is the way I think about things. A lot of people, actually, I even had somebody ask me here earlier, well, is gold too expensive? Did I miss it? No, a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. Governments do not want you to understand that the currency is failing, and so they suppress and suppress and suppress the price. But this is a con game. They need your confidence. So when they've lost the confidence, that's when the gold comes back in, and that's when we get that overnight revaluation. And I can tell you absolutely, gold is sound money. These bills, this stuff, and the digitals, that's fiat money. They're both money, but they're the flip side of it. We know in this system, what generates money is debt. So if you want to know the true fundamental value of gold so that you know if something is undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued, therefore, do I want to buy it? Do I want to hold it? Do I want to liquidate it? Well, you have to understand how much it's really worth. Does anybody here believe Wall Street? I worked in Wall Street. I don't believe them. I know better. I worked in banking. I understand the language, and I'm not there, am I? So the true fundamental value of 1 ounce of gold, were they to do an overnight reset today, is somewhere in the vicinity of $40,000. So at $4,000, is it overpriced? Is it overvalued? No, it is not. So keep accumulating, become your own central banker, because the way that I look at gold and silver, not as a trade, as a foundation. Physical gold, physical silver in your possession are the only two financial assets that run zero counterparty risk. What's next? Opportunities, stocks, bonds, ETFs, etc., royalties. Now, you could be thinking this is where you get exposure, sub-leverage, etc. Okay. And I know somebody said, well, what about Bitcoin? Maybe I can buy it and then I can convert it. Well, you can until you can't. And I'm telling you, I was there on Black Monday and I went out to lunch in the morning. Everything seemed normal. When I got back to the office, I raised my right hand to God, no crosses count. It was chaos. We had clients all over the place and the stockbrokers were in the back. And when I went in the back, I didn't see anybody. And I'm thinking, where is everybody? Because the phones are ringing, everybody's shouting out in the front. They were literally under their desks. The stockbrokers were, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not kidding either. It was the most incredible day, the best day I could have ever been a stockbroker. Because then I had these oil wildcatters, and they taught me the technicals of the market. But they were really brilliant. But above here, and we've got to really pay attention to this, is that permission layer. When you say, well, can the bank just shut down my account? It's not your account. It's not your money in there. You have loaned the bank that money and they have safe harbor. They don't have to give it back to you. Legally, they do not have to give it back to you. Did anybody go to jail in 2008? I think a protester did. Exactly. Why? What they did was horrendous, disgusting. There are people that are still feeling the impact, but it wasn't illegal. And they're doing the same thing with all these hyperscalers and all of those entities that are doing all these cryptocurrencies. They have safe harbor, which means they can blow up the whole system. They're not going to jail. You and I are going to be paying for it, because whenever there's expansion and all of this debt, there's always a price to be paid. And when you're looking at opportunities, people look up at the top. They think, well, that's my bank account. It's not your bank account. It's an illusion. And people think, well, look, maybe the stock market's going to keep going up. And it can certainly, I think we're in melt-up phase. So yeah, it's going to keep going up. But 1 trillion times zero is zero. Have a foundation so that no matter what happens, you are okay. It's proper diversification. What if I'm right? What if I'm wrong? If you can do something that doesn't matter whether you're right or you're wrong, Why in the world wouldn't you do that? And here's a question, and I really want you to think about this. Do you own the money that survives the change? Because gold and silver has survived a lot of changes. There's over 4,800 fiat money currencies that don't exist anymore because there's no value in here. And they're designed to be inflated away and rob you of your work, your labor, your hopes, and your dreams. And people wonder why they have trouble feeding their children. Here in the US, adults can't pull together $400 for an emergency. And they have to take out a 4 easy payment loan in order to feed their children. That's horrendous. So ask yourself that question. Do I own the money that survives the change? And if we can help you, if you have any questions and we can be of service in any way at all, if this conversation has created some questions for you, we would be honored to help you do it. And could my team please stand up just so they can see who you are? We're all over the place. There's Sari and Jen and Brandon and Jacqueline and Dale. So come and get your dime cards, have that conversation. And I know a lot of people like to ask me questions typically. So are there any questions that I could answer for you today? Yes. Can you come up to the mic, please? And there's no question that's off limits, by the way. Oops. I don't know, but let me see. Could we turn on this mic somehow? Hello? Nope. You want this? Can we turn the mic on? Okay. Okay.
Do you know the story of Norman Dodd?
No, would you share it, please?
Yes, he was a banker and he worked for the bank. His boss was the head banker.
It's not working.
Hello. Okay, now you hear me. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank
No,
you.
Norman Dodd was a banker. He worked for the banker. He was like a sub banker, and the collapse had just happened, and the banker told him, "Well, we don't know what to do." He says, "Well, you have to go out and find out." So he took 2.5 years and found out and came back, and the result was he said to the banker, "You have to go back to sound banking money principles." And the banker told him, "We will never ever go back to sound banking money principles," and here we are.
Well, so what are we going to do about that? Because we can accept it. No, would they want to give up their money monopoly? Of course not. So that's why it's so I travel around the world and I talk about sound money and I hand out the dime cards because we have to come together in global community and demand it. That's the only way. They're not going to go, yeah, we've had a good run. Your turn.
Yeah, those who should be charged with treason, and upon conviction, no federal judge has any authority to rule other than death.
So I forget exactly which year.
Can you talk about, yeah.
I forget exactly which year FDR said you have to trade in your money, trade in your gold.
1933.
Okay, 1933. And then, of course, conveniently, they paid people, 20%? They revalued the gold after everyone.
Yeah, 69% overnight revaluation. Yep.
So my question is, what's to prevent them from doing it again? Because if you have,
That's exactly the point. You are so right. That's why we have to come together and say, no, you can't do that. But what's to prevent them too is making sure you are as self-sufficient and independent as possible. And food is the biggest issue. 2008, I definitely knew the system died. There was not one doubt in my mind. That's when I became an urban farmer and a prepper. Because we need to create sure, I don't know what a prepper or farmer looks like, but I'm one. I can tell you that because I believe my studies. And food is single biggest issue for people. You can't live without food. You can't live without water. So that's why community is really important, local community, because go to a farmer's market, go to a community garden, get to know the people that grow your food, give them a day's labor. Even though silver is probably my favorite form of barter because it's universal, right? And it has no shelf life. Any tool, any skill that you have, anything physical that you have is also barterable. So we need to come together, share the gifts that we've been given. If you know how to garden, that's awesome. Maybe you have a massage therapist or something like that. I have a bug out location and I'm setting it up to be able to support 40 people because it takes a community, right? I'm not going to go out there. I don't lay irrigation anymore, but I know how to. I'll tell you right now, I don't want to, but if I had to do it, I could absolutely do it. And in this community that we're pulling together, we have doctors, we have teachers, we do have a massage therapist because I think that's really important. We have farmers, we have carpenters, we have a variety of skills. That's why a local community is so very important. And then the global community, if we can get 3% of the 8.4 billion people that are on this planet, just 3%, that's not that many, then I think we can have redeemable gold back in the system again. That's what I'm fighting for.
Hello, my name's Todd. I've got a kind of a two-part question / statement. And I want your thoughts on it, obviously. What do you say?
Joe, speak into the mic more if they can't hear you.
Talking to the mic more?
Yes, thank you.
I can't hear very well either. So in the Constitution, it says specifically that $1 equals 1 troy ounce of silver. And all debts to the government must be paid in gold and silver. So that would be one solution whenever anybody says, giving them a note of indebtedness, you can't really pay that. So, you kind of quander and say, well, what do I pay you with that's actually money? So I wanted your thought on that. And the second thing is about the national debt. I guess it's at like $40 trillion. So, or not dollars, Federal Reserve notes. Since the interest was never printed, the debt can't really be ever paid back, not one dime.
That was never the intention.
Yes, exactly. So is it possible if people became aware and understood how the monetary system worked for the people to actually just reject the national debt?
Yeah, I think that's possible, but understand debt isn't as much about debt as it is about money expansion, because that is how money is created. Now,
Through debt, right.
Correct. Now, for a long time, I was trying to figure out, well, what are they going to use as justification for the new digital money? And everything that I had read was either more debt, which means they have to get rid of the debt that we've got right now. That's hyperinflating it away. That's how they do it. Or purchases. But with the legalization of the stable coins, that's how they're doing it. Between purchases are going to justify creating this new money. And the easier and cheaper it is to create that kind of garbage, the more of it gets created and what's its value. So what I showed you today was the way they got around the Constitution. That was unconstitutional. I asked, why? How come everybody allowed that?
The Federal Reserve is private. So
absolutely. It's a private corporation. You and I, we're working for private corporate debt. And it's in our pockets and we don't think anything about it. But look at it. Federal Reserve note. Federal Reserve, as you know, is private, and a note is a debt instrument. It's not money.
So if people became aware and we told our Congress, even though they don't listen to us right now, that nationalize the Federal Reserve, revoke, or I forget the exact legal term for it, discharge, that's it. Discharge the debt and wipes it out. Just like if you go, and I did the experiment myself, after I read your book in the early 2000s, I argued with credit card companies. And for the most part, I won, and they just discharged the debt back in like 2000. I bought a bunch of gold and silver. But yeah, my ex-wife has it all in a safety deposit box, so I don't know how that's going to work for me.
Well,
But
you can talk to us at our booth. We'll
she
fix
said
it.
she said
We'll
it's
help
worth 400,000 now, and I knew that. But
oh, it's worth way more than that. See, it's really interesting. And somebody, you know, if you get the dime card, it has the price that we happen to pay on the day that we happen to buy that dime, right? And somebody, they get all excited. Wow, you've given me $6. No, I've given you not quite a tenth of an ounce of silver, but we've been trained to put value in dollars. Dollars have no value. If you look on the bottom of the Federal Reserve purchasing power chart, there's a big fat goose egg there.
so I got one more
Okay.
question. Oh, you guys, are you sure? Okay.
We're
So
good. We've got
last
time.
question. I've been noticing on the Federal Reserve notes that, like with the new $100 bill, and I think the 50 and even the 20, you'll see it's being issued not by a bank, by the original 12 Federal Reserve banks, but by, it'll say like Federal, if I remember right, I'm going off my, I could look, but Federal Reserve System. And whereas the old bills came from Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas, Dallas, New York, San Francisco, I think maybe Denver and a few others. But you notice it's a different bank now system?
Arose by any other name. They call things all different, like confiscation. Boy, oh boy, they would never confiscate gold again in this country. Well, manipulating the price openly. I mean, when did the spot gold and silver market start? 1970s, in the 70s. And they said, you know, if you take your time and read the discussions, which are released many, many years after the fact, so who goes back and reads them? But if you read the conversations that they have when they're setting things up, it's very interesting. They actually said that their goal was to create a very large paper market so that the demand for the physical would be minimum. And we were taught that gold, to treat gold as a trade, not as money. And yet, what are the central banks accumulating? Are they accumulating gold to trade? No, they are not. They are accumulating gold to preserve their freedom. And central banks aren't really free anyway, but they're accumulating gold because that's how you, and silver as well. They're not accumulating silver, but I'm saying we all need some silver as well to preserve your freedom.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful information that you've shared.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Is gold and silver in a self-directed IRA safe?
Everybody must do whatever they're comfortable doing. That is not a choice that I have made, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it, regardless of what your perception is. In the court of law, they don't care about your perception. So that is not a choice. And I will tell you, because I've studied currencies and currency life cycles, and there are repeatable patterns. It's not rocket science. You just have to look at enough of them and you go, oh, that's something that happens every time. All right, I can't guarantee tomorrow, but to be quite frank with you, if something's happened 100% of the time, over 4,800 times, and we're going through the same thing, then more than likely, you know what the next most likely outcome is going to be.
Thank you.
And so we've developed a strategy that's based on that.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Lori, and my question for you is, we have a close-knit community. We have
excellent.
We have a bunker. We have a bug-out plan. We're fairly prepared, and during a collapse, I still have a hard time picturing what it looks like.
Oh.
What does a financial collapse
Look at Venezuela.
look like?
Look at Venezuela. Look at Zimbabwe. Generally, globally, on average, about 80% of the population ends up in abject poverty. 80%. Now, in both Zimbabwe and Venezuela, those numbers are 90%. But notice I did not say 100%, did I? Because there's always people that have wealth, and wealth doesn't disappear, it just shifts location. Now, Wall Street wants you to think they can manufacture wealth. Well, sure they can, because the Wall Street also creates new money into the system. But what it looks like, this is why I'm so encouraging of local communities, because we have to come together to weather this storm. And it does, it takes a village. So it is it's not good. People are abject poverty. They can't feed themselves. They can't feed their children.
Will this happen overnight? Will we wake up and the dollar's collapsed?
Part of it will happen overnight, but it's been happening. Go in and look at the purchasing power chart. Put your birthday in there, and you're going to see how much they are admitting to stealing from you since the day you were born. So the difference between inflation and hyperinflation is just the speed. So for example, if I walked into your closet and I took one button over 30 years, at the end of 30 years, I'd have a lot of buttons. But if you wouldn't probably notice it, it'd just be like an inconvenience. Oh, wow, I need to fix that button again. If I walk into your closet and take out 98% of every button in your closet, you're gonna notice it tomorrow. So the collapse has been happening since 1913.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lynette, I like how you, I like how you referred to Bitcoin as being a Trojan horse.
Oh, well, it's true.
And I guess I just was wondering about a general answer, what you think about technocracy. Basically, when you're looking at the World Economic Forum and they say you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, but
I don't think you'll be happy. I disagree.
It's the corral's getting tighter. But anyway, I just wonder if you had any comments to make about the technocratic plan to change the price-based monetary system into all the natural resources of the planet, which they'll own and we'll own nothing.
Exactly. And then you're going to have to rent everything. And look at what's already happening.
That's why I buy precious metals too.
Exactly. All of those subscriptions, but you also need to create surety. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, which for me is primarily silver, but not exclusively. Wealth preservation, which for me is primarily gold, but not exclusively. Community is arguably the most important thing I ever talk about anymore.
Absolutely.
And shelter. This is what we need. So people are procrastinating. We think we have all this time. I can't tell you that it's going to be noticeable Tuesday morning at 8:35, but I was there on Black Monday. The day started out normal. I went out for lunch. It was a completely different thing when I got back from lunch.
Hi, thank you very much. I have two quick questions. You said something about right now, an ounce of gold is worth $40,000.
Yeah, that's the
How do you
fundamental
arrive
value.
at that? Where did that
That's
come
a great
from?
number. I'm going to do a video on, I have done videos on it, but I think I know how to do it better now. So bear with me. But it's really quite simple. Okay? Gold is sound money. This garbage is fiat money. They're both money, right? Just the flip side of the coin. So how is this created? Through debt. So you just take all the debt that's been created. You can do it country to country. You can do it however you want. I kind of do it globally. And I believe the last time I checked from the IFF, the global debt that they were admitting to stood at something like, I don't know, 319 trillion or something like that. And then you just divide it. There's a finite amount of gold. See, so you take all the debt, you divide it by all the gold, and then that actually tells you how much this is truly worth.
That's
You
great.
see?
Yes, I do.
And when they're trying to get back your confidence,
Yeah.
because it's a con game,
They'll
that's
they'll
when you're
change
going to
the number.
start. Exactly.
Change the number.
It's not going to happen immediately. And what nobody's going to know until they do it is what that cover ratio is.
That's great.
So that 40,000 is on a 1-to-1 basis. But guess what? Are they done growing debt?
No, they're going to change it. Okay,
Exactly.
one more quick question. What about diamonds?
Well, actually, De Beers just recently slashed their prices because
Whoa.
they have figured out how to create diamonds in a lab, right? And the other thing about diamonds or gems or things like that, they have more value the larger they are. The beauty of gold is you can melt this down. It can be so thin and you still have gold. It doesn't lose its value. Gems will lose their value if you cut them smaller. And this is monetary.
Real quick, I don't want to take much of your time, but the gold that's at Fort Knox, supposedly, and on the balance sheet of the United States, what the value is it valued at current value or is it valued at an older, like I was under the impression it's valued at $41 an ounce or something.
$42.22. But understand too, every single central bank has a gold revaluation account.
One last question coming up, final one. Lynette, in your system, where you're going to stay, you mentioned energy.
Yes.
Tesla had that type of energy. They put us on a rent system for energy. What is your answer? How are you going to make this energy?
Well, the way that I'm making it right now, because I have the property up there and it is off grid, at the moment we have solar and I'm able to generate plenty of energy for my house. There is about 4,500 square feet and I have a guest cottage and then I have a grow dome, so for food. However, there was wind on there, didn't work very well. We're going to do that. And then as we start to put in some ponds, we're going to do some hydroelectric. And we're going to show people how we're doing it. The good, the bad, we screw it up, whatever. You know, the interesting thing is that people will look and they'll say, oh, look at that. She knows how to do all of this. Yeah, well, would you like to see my gazillion-dollar tomato? So we do it and we share. And
that's it, Lynette Zhang. How about that? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was just thinking about a lot of the things you've said. I've been studying up too. The necessity of bringing the community together and utilizing other forms of exchange, not when the collapse occurs, but now, as I said, because you don't have practice and suddenly now you don't know what to do. What happens when the Amish when the electricity goes off? Nothing. It's business. Well, if you are not already spending gold, silver, gold backs in your community, you're doing it wrong. Don't hold it and hoard it. There are ways to fractionally take them down to smaller quantities, whether it's silver or these gold backs or other things. We can practice and teach now. I go to the Ace Hardware in my community and I could spend gold backs. It's already happening. But if it's not happening where you are, that's trouble. Either get out or start doing it now. Don't wait. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff we get to do here at the Red Pill Expo. How about that, huh? Taking it and making it real. The red pill is not just some kind of fantasy. It's something that we are living. And I thank you all for coming. Day one is done. You guys have a good time? You ready for day two? All right, let's say a big thank you and applause for all of our speakers today as we wrap it up, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Gee, Dad, can I ask you something?
Shoot, Chip.
Billy says his older brother's new phone is the niffiest thing he's ever seen. Says it practically reads his mind. Golly, is that even possible?
Possible, sure. Worth having, that's a different question.
What you mean? Wouldn't it be swell to have a phone that just knows stuff about you?
Would it be swell if the mailman read every letter before he delivered it, Chip?
Gosh, no. That'd be kinda nosy.
That's the word for it, all right. Seems some folks forgot why that matters.
Remember when modern meant your life got easier, not watched?
That's why Mark 3.7 doesn't build it that way, son. The ghost phone doesn't go poking around in your business to seem clever. It just does what you ask of it, nothing more.
Gee whiz. So it's not nosy at all?
Not one bit. Same with my ghost laptop right there on the table. Quiet as a Sunday afternoon.
Boy, that beats Billy's brother's phone by a mile.
I use mine for recipes and the church newsletter. It's never once tried to sell me something I didn't ask for.
So everybody in the house has one of these ghost things?
Whole house runs quieter for it, Chip. Always was the idea.
Some things never needed improving, just protecting.
Welcome to the Reality Zone, your ultimate source for knowledge and truth. At realityzone.com, we offer a wide selection of books, audios, and videos, all designed to educate, inform, and inspire. But more importantly, offer an alternative to mainstream narrative fueled by corrupt government and institutional propaganda. Whether you're interested in freedom, health, money, or general knowledge, we have you covered. Discover our bestsellers like Creature from Jekyll Island, an eye-opening exploration into the world of banking and finance, and World Without Cancer, which challenges conventional views on health and disease, and much more thought-provoking content from G. Edward Griffin. Visit Reality Zone today and take the red pill. Step into a world of awareness where once the bell is rung, it can never be unrung. Plus, don't miss us at this year's Red Pill Expo that brings together experts and enthusiasts from around the world. Visit redpillexpo.org for more information. Check out realityzone.com today for these titles and exclusive Red Pill Expo content available on thumb drive for the first time ever. There will be great deals and discounts, all in time for holiday shopping.
In 1943, the government seized Nikola Tesla's most dangerous invention, a healing technology that threatened Big Pharma's entire empire. They buried it for 100 years, but it's back, and over 1,000 people worldwide are using it right now. When you join Tesla Club, you get your own Tesla plasma device, 5 times more powerful than the original Violet Ray and built to last. You join a private Telegram group where members share breakthroughs daily. Stroke recoveries, cancer reversals, chronic pain gone in minutes. These aren't stories. These are yesterday's posts. You get lifetime support from people who've been where you are. Technical guidance, therapeutic protocols, a group that actually understands. And you get access to hundreds of documented experiments, real members, real results, real transformations. No prescriptions, no waiting for permission, no begging doctors who don't believe you. Just you, your machine, and a movement taking health sovereignty back. We're Tesla Club, private science club for self-directed healing. Visit tzla.club. Join the revolution. Plasma.
It's back!
this is merely to introduce properly one Robert F. Williams, the president in exile of this Republic of New Africa and the author of The Crusader. Now here is what Robert Williams says. The lifeblood of U.S. capitalism is its productive capacity and its extensive commerce. If these two factors were to become paralyzed and rendered sterile, the orderly function of the government establishment would degenerate into a state of chaos, and the superstructure of the system would collapse. The more automated a society is, the more vulnerable it is to forces of calamity. What would highly mechanized America be without electrical power? What would it be without modern transportation? What would it be without its industrial capacity? And then, having asked these questions, Robert Williams proceeds to explain in minute detail exactly how to manufacture the devices that can be used by a mere handful of people to ensure that highly automated America will lose its electrical power, its modern transportation, and its industrial capacity. I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that less than a dozen people, if they know what they're doing, can reduce any of our major cities into a helpless, seething mass of confusion, panic, and death. Just one person can poison the city's entire water supply, or destroy the main aqueduct, or blow up the principal pumping stations. And where would people in Los Angeles, for instance, get a drink of water if it didn't come out of a pipe? And how long can a human being survive without water? 4 or 5 days, perhaps? But long before that, there'd be tens of thousands of people dead in our cities, not from thirst, but because they were unable to defend what water they had from roving bands of desperate people who were dying of thirst. And that's thinking only of the loss of water. Your mind's eye, compound that with no food, no electricity, no way to dispose of sewage, no police protection, no water pressure to fight fires, no radio or TV, no telephone, no buses, no gasoline for your car, no way to escape, no place to go if you could. And don't think for a minute that the countryside would be immune from disaster either. In this issue of The Crusader, the communists call not only for extensive chaos within the cities, but for putting to the torch every village, every forest, every field, and every barn. The plan is for raging fires from one city to the next. The reason? Well, first, there's the value of sheer destruction. Secondly, it would force us to deploy our defenses and rescue units over the widest possible area. The communists point out that as long as our police and National Guard remain concentrated, they're invincible. But if they can be forced to spread out over the entire city and into the countryside as well, then they can be picked off from ambush one by one. And the third value of massive fire to the communists is psychological. The average American, they say, soft and decadent, when he sees billows of black smoke rising from one horizon to the other, when at night the only light he has to see by is the flickering red from flames leaping into the sky, he'll become paralyzed with fear and panic. He'll run away and hide and do nothing to interfere with the guerrilla bands as they strike at the community's power centers. The Crusader explains how to set up sniper units in crowded metropolitan areas, how to manufacture jumbo Molotov cocktails, the gallon jug size, and how to mix the gasoline with certain ingredients to make it burn like napalm, how to pour gasoline into utility manholes in the streets to set fire to the main telephone cables, how to put sulfur tips from matches into air conditioning units and blow up large buildings, how to ignite gas mains and oil storage tanks. It explains how radio-controlled model airplanes can be used to fly explosive heavily guarded fences into gasoline storage areas or munition stockpiles.
You take the red pill, and find out how deep the rabbit hole goes. Welcome to The Truth.
Hey, this is Amalia with Growth Factor. Right next to me is one of the most famous men on the globe. That's how I always talk about Mr. G. Edward Griffin. He's now 94. And around 94 is when he wrote one of the most famous books on the planet, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And every year he has Red Pill University. Can you tell us the next one and what it's all about?
People that are already outside of the matrix, and they offer them the red pill. If they take the red pill, then suddenly they're out of the matrix and they can see life the way it really is. But if they don't want to see life the way it really is, and wouldn't you know, a lot of people don't like reality. They rather have the illusions. If you don't want reality, you can take your blue pill and you just stay in that dream state forever. I thought it was a great idea to have an Expo conference and deliver a lot of very knowledgeable people who can talk about discovering the red pill in their own personal lives. And a lot of these people are professionals and high up in the professions. We've got doctors and lawyers and teachers, and we got common people that sell things and from all walks of life. And it's particularly interesting when you deal with people in the political world and in the world of healthcare.
Infectant, where it knocks it out in a minute.
Chlorine dioxide has so many mechanisms of action.
The war on chlorine dioxide. That every cupboard in this country should have chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide.
Chlorine dioxide is super awesome. Pierre Corey has a new book that I've read about the history of chlorine dioxide, and you're featured in
The wellness blanket is made top and bottom with 100% organic cotton, and the middle is energy reflecting materials. So when you're fully wrapped in it, it's kind of like a mirror effect where the good strong energies are bouncing back to heal the weak, and then your immune system kicks in and puts the body into parasympathetic so your body can actually heal itself. It started back in the 1960s in Russia. So the cosmonauts are in their spacesuits, and the scientists take apart the spacesuit and they realize in the spacesuit are these energy reflecting materials. And then in the 1990s, they took that technology in Russia and they put it into a blanket. They wanted something that the general public could also benefit from. Yeah, so we have really seen people that haven't slept in years and now they can sleep again. If your body is wrapped in that blanket, it's just that powerful cocoon where your body's just immune to all that outside interference. When that happens, you can really rest and sleep deeply. Like we were saying, you dream and you wake up. I know for me, when I wake up, I am so refreshed. So you're going to go ahead and lay down on it. And then it's going to cover you. This is the standard blanket. Again, you want to make sure the plain side is next to the body, so the energy reflecting materials are acting like a gentle infrared sun. The last few months since I've been working with more autism families, these children are so calm, relaxed. They can sleep, the parents can sleep, which is so important. One of the moms took the blanket home with her and her son is using it in his therapy. The therapist said that it usually takes 8 hours for her to get as deep as she was able to get with him in 30 minutes. Just laying on top of the blanket. These pets love their wellness blanket. I have a friend who is also an affiliate, Dr. Carey. She has a little dog. He's about 9 years old, but he has arthritis in his hip. So when she got a blanket several months ago, she had to pick him up and put him on the bed so he could sleep with her. But after 2 weeks, he can now jump up again, and he's not showing that pain that he used to have. One of the most important things with the wellness blanket is that we keep it dry. And when you buy your wellness blanket, it will say here, dry clean only, do not get wet. You want to go to thewellnessblanket.com. I always tell people don't forget because if you just put in wellness blanket, you won't find us. So it's thewellnessblanket.com. Make sure you put in blanket 10 for 10% off.
Former KGB operative Yuri Kuzminov defected to the United States and became an American citizen. In this interview, he describes the 4 stages of ideological subversion used by the Communist Party to take over the United States.
When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow and is divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate 1 generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. It's what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. It will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to.
Infectant, where it knocks it out in a minute.
Chlorine dioxide has so many mechanisms of action.
The war on chlorine dioxide. That every cupboard in this country should have chlorine dioxide.
Chlorine dioxide is super awesome. Pierre Corey has a new book that I've read about the history of chlorine dioxide, and you're featured.
Meet G. Edward Griffin, a renowned author and researcher who has uncovered truths that have changed the way we understand the world. His groundbreaking book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, takes you on a thrilling journey into the secret world of the Federal Reserve. It's a detective story, but everything is true. This is essential reading for anyone curious about the origins and impact of our monetary system. In World Without Cancer, Griffin challenges the conventional understanding of health, presenting compelling evidence that cancer is linked to a deficiency in a natural compound that can be found in 1,400 edible plants, but which have been deleted from modern diets due to their slightly bitter taste, such as is found in apple seeds. This book explores alternative perspectives on feet cancer simply by restoring small amounts of this substance to our daily diet. At realityzone.com, you'll find these best-selling titles and a collection of other thought-provoking works as well. From history and health to economics and geopolitics, there's something for everyone with a curious mind. Visit realityzone.com to discover exclusive offers when books are bundled, save up to 20%, and unlock deeper insights into the world around us.
is Robert Scott Bell. You probably are sick of seeing me as the MC for the Red Pill Expo, but what can I say? I can't say no to Ed. What are you going to say? G. Edward Griffin calls you. So I love you all. Appreciate you so much. Many of you might know me from the Robert Scott Bell Show. I've been doing this show for over 25 years in broadcast media. Yes, you have a friend in the media that has been red-pilled and been red-pilling for decades. Oh, not as long as Ed, but hey, I'll take a fraction of that. That's okay. Also, I'm a homeopath. What does that mean? Don't be frightened. It means I bring the power to heal back to you where it belongs. It's not like I haven't give it to you. I just remind you of where it's originating from and then kind of tap you into some of those things that you're never going to hear about in the lamestream, mainstream, legacy media. No pharmaceutical pills here, no shots needed, nothing like that. I'm on 6 days a week, believe it or not. Yes, 6 days a week. So beyond the Red Pill Expo, you can still have 2+ hours every day, Monday through Friday live, additional hour on Sundays. Where do you listen? Where do you watch it? Come on over to robertscottbell.com, and then there's a listen or live or watch live link. It's just /live, and you can see that here on the video. Now, another thing I like to do, because I don't sell products on my show, I certainly talk about the things I believe in. I consider them RSB approved. I've been at this for so long. So if you want to learn about how to get healthy and stay healthy, there's a whole section on the website you can see here, Products We Love section, and just click on anything to get discounts, the best stuff available for you, whether it be supplements, services, different things like that. There's a lot to learn, and I've been doing it for so long. I still have more to learn, but I love to teach as well. Also, one of the things I talk about, economic healing. You guys maybe don't know about this, but the United Precious Metals Association, which is one of the links we have here, you can set up a free account. It's like having your own trust. Just with an email, you could set up your kids, your grandkids. They can start saving in real money, sound money, gold, silver, gold backs. And that's available there for you free. We have that link up in the Products We Love section at robertscottbell.com. There's also so much more, including once a month, I meet with you, those of you who are really interested in learning more, with a Patreon support page. Thank you for supporting this message of health, freedom, and healing liberty. You can get more, you can give more. And that is with our Patreon page. We have a monthly meeting via Zoom where we see one another. You can submit questions that I can't answer into the public's domain, but in that private group, you can plug in and learn a lot as well. Wonderful opportunity there. So there's so much happening here at the Red Pill Expo. I just want to remind you that beyond the Red Pill Expo, we can stay in touch. We can keep the red pill bouncing, so to speak, and bring the power to heal back where it belongs with each and every one of you. So thank you to G. Edward Griffin and the crew at the Red Pill Expo for supporting this message of health, freedom, and healing liberty. And you'll always have a home here with me on the Robert Scott Bell Show, robertscottbell.com.
Welcome to Reality Zone, the official store for Red Pill University and Red Pill Expo, where we invite you to embark on a transformative journey toward uncovering the truths that lie beneath the surface of our modern society. Inspired by the powerful message of Take the Red Pill, our mission is to empower individuals to break free from the illusions propagated by fake news, corrupt politics, and institutional propaganda. Our carefully curated selection of books and recordings addresses the critical issues of freedom, health, and financial independence. Learn how elitist agendas threaten your rights and discover the healing power of nature, challenging the influence of big pharma. Explore the complex world of money and banking to reveal hidden systems affecting your wealth and liberty. Step into the reality zone, take the red pill, and embrace the knowledge that transforms your understanding of the world. But once you take the red pill, the illusion can never be restored. Once you enter the reality zone, you can never return to the twilight zone from which you came.
From the desk of G. Edward Griffin comes a powerful revelation: the chasm, collectivism versus individualism, the issue behind all issues. Collectivists are those who advocate collectivism, the belief that the group is more important than the individual, and that individuals must be sacrificed, if necessary, for the greater good of the greater number. Individualists are those who advocate individualism, the belief that the individual is more important than the group, because the group is merely an abstraction and exists only to the extent that individuals exist, and that the defense of individual rights is the greater good of the greater number. Dive into this concise 48-page work that lays bare the conflict shaping our world today: the chasm, collectivism versus individualism, at chasm.realityzone.com. Have you ever wondered why so much of what you hear in the media feels filtered or even manipulated? The truth is, most major news outlets are controlled by collectivists, people who think it's their duty to shape what you believe. So the common man ends up with a so-called correct opinion. At needtoknow.news, we do things differently. We provide unfiltered news and commentary as an antidote to the mainstream's newspeak. Here, there are no distractions with sports or celebrity gossip. Instead, we focus on what truly matters: your freedom, your health, and your financial security. And while we stand for individualism, we promise this: we'll never twist the facts just to fit our view. Even if the truth is uncomfortable, we'll report it anyway and let truth have its voice. Join thousands who refuse to be misled. Sign up for the needtoknow.news newsletter today and start seeing the world as it really is.
Gee, Dad, can I ask you something?
Shoot, Chip.
Billy says his older brother's new phone is the niffiest thing he's ever seen. Says it practically reads his mind. Golly, is that even possible?
Possible, sure. Worth having, that's a different question.
What you mean? Wouldn't it be swell to have a phone that just knows stuff about you?
Would it be swell if the mailman read every letter before he delivered it, Chip?
Gosh, no. That'd be kinda nosy.
That's the word for it, all right. Seems some folks forgot why that matters.
Remember when modern meant your life got easier, not watched?
That's why Mark 3.7 doesn't build it that way, son. The ghost phone doesn't go poking around in your business to seem clever. It just does what you ask of it. Nothing more.
Gee whiz. So it's not nosy at all?
Not one bit. Same with my ghost laptop right there on the table. Quiet as a Sunday afternoon.
Boy, that beats Billy's brother's phone by a mile.
I use mine for recipes and the church newsletter. It's never once tried to sell me something I didn't ask for.
So everybody in the house has one of these ghost things?
Whole house runs quieter for it, Chip. Always was the idea.
Some things never needed improving, just protecting.
Welcome to the Reality Zone, your ultimate source for knowledge and truth. At realityzone.com, we offer a wide selection of books, audios, and videos, all designed to educate, inform, and inspire. But more importantly, offers an alternative to the mainstream narrative fueled by corrupt government and institutional propaganda. Whether you're interested in freedom, health, money, or general knowledge, we have you covered. Discover our bestsellers like Creature from Jekyll Island, an eye-opening exploration into the world of banking and finance, and World Without Cancer, which challenges conventional views on health and disease, and much more thought-provoking content from G. Edward Griffin. Visit Reality Zone today and take the red pill. Step into a world of awareness where once the bell is rung, it can never be unrung. Plus, don't miss us at this year's Red Pill Expo that brings together experts and enthusiasts from around the world. Visit redpillexpo.org for more information. Check out realityzone.com today for these titles and exclusive Red Pill Expo content available on thumb drive for the first time ever. There will be great deals and discounts, all in time for holiday shopping.
In 1943, the government seized Nikola Tesla's most dangerous invention, a healing technology that threatened Big Pharma's entire empire. They buried it for 100 years, but it's back. And over 1,000 people worldwide are using it right now. When you join Tesla Club, you get your own Tesla plasma device, 5 times more powerful than the original Violet Ray and built to last. You join a private Telegram group where members share breakthroughs daily. Stroke recoveries, cancer reversals, chronic pain gone in minutes. These aren't stories. These are yesterday's posts. You get lifetime support from people who've been where you are. Technical guidance, therapeutic protocols, a group that actually understands. And you get access to hundreds of documented experiments, real members, real results, real transformations. No prescriptions, no waiting for permission, no begging doctors who don't believe you. Just you, your machine, and a movement taking health sovereignty back. Or Tesla Club, private science club for self-directed healing. Visit